special guest as usual. Rikkert Engels is joining us today, fresh off of his wing from the Process Innovation Challenge. So we're going to be talking all about that with him today. Really quickly, though, let's talk to you a little bit about what we do here at Nimdzi Live pop-up events. These are pop-up events, which means that they are not scheduled, they're not marketed. We do these randomly, so if you want to be notified of when we go live so that you can join in the conversation, please make sure to like and subscribe to Nimdzi Insights, and then you'll be all set and you can come join us in the conversation. If you are watching this live today, please join in the comments below. And if you have any questions for Rikkert, comments, we welcome those. We will bring those comments up on screen and you can engage that way. Otherwise, this recording will be made available afterwards on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and also as a podcast if you subscribe to Nimdzi Live on Spotify, Amazon Podcast, or Apple Music, all of that stuff. Really quickly, let's give some background about the Process Innovation Challenge before I let Rikkert introduce himself here. The Process Innovation Challenge, or the PIC, hosted most recently at Localization World, or I should say LocWorldWide, number 44. It encourages, basically the Process Innovation Challenge encourages people to innovate in our industry, and it's kind of like a Shark Tank for the localization industry. The Process Dragons review the pitches from different innovators and make a judgment on those. And our winner this year was Mr. Rikkert Engels from Xillio, and the submission was about LoCub. Rikkert, tell us about this. Tell us about LoCub. I want to do it justice, so I need you to describe it, not me.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, it was great to compete at the Process Innovation Challenge. We won in 2018 with our connector offering, and so I'm very pleased we won again this year in the 2021 edition with our Lockup Insights. And basically, what Lockup Insights is, it's a localization dashboard that provides information that allows localization managers to talk tangible business value with their stakeholders in the organization. So we run a crawl on a website, and we identify issues with language, with kind of double languages. We identify issues that hurt the user experience. We identify issues that hurt the SEO. And we give practical tips and tricks, basically how to take the most out of your localization efforts.
And with that, like I was watching to prepare for this, I was watching the most recent Process Innovation Challenge where everything's recorded, which, by the way, is available for those of you that have that were in attendance of Localization Worldwide and have access to Jujama. I know I'm mispronouncing that, but the platform, and you can go check it out right here and watch the live streaming video of everything right there. And it's also held on YouTube as well. So this isn't just Rikkert. This is all of the challengers, the people coming to present their challenges, and the commentary by the Shark Tanks. And the links to these are down in the description. So, Rikkert, before we get into it, and I do want to do, like we were playing around with this right beforehand, I think we're set up to be able to do a demo today, but LoCub is catching, the thing that stuck out to me the most about it was just the number of issues that are present that we're not even checking for in the localization world. And what I'm talking about specifically are these issues that happen, I think you say, like after the CMS, right?
Correct.
So talk to me about that. What do you mean by this, like after the CMS?
Yeah, indeed. So if you take the technical innovation that we present, and is that if you think about localization and you think about the translation process, then the job of the translation process typically ends when it's imported into the CMS. So we get it out of a CMS, it's translated, it's back into a TMS, and the TMS puts it back into the CMS, and then the job is done. But of course, the objective of translation is to increase the reach in the local market, or to convert a visitor into a buying prospect. And so the journey of a translation effort only ends when it's on the website. And what we notice is that there is no quality step between between the CMS and the actual website. And so there's a lot of quality step during the translation process, but nobody checks it when it's in the CMS and it's from the CMS published on the website.
Yeah, we have lots of quality steps, like lots of different programs that we've defined that are just kind of over the years become industry standard when we talk about LQA, for example.
Yeah,
This LQA, this is to me, it shouldn't be, but to me, LQA is very much a loaded term because it comes with certain assumptions around it and certain expectations around what it is and what it's meant to do. But to me, LQA is very much just, it's a form of catching errors. And
yeah,
I really don't like that our industry's idea of quality is catching errors rather than, I should say, focusing on the end user, focusing on the end user experience, focusing on what makes a translation really phenomenal, actually.
yeah,
Because you talk to any language quality manager in the industry, and they can talk for hours. I could talk for hours about what makes a translation bad, right?
yeah, yeah.
What makes a translation good? And I think that's something that we're really trying to come together as an industry and define what that means. And I don't think we're there yet. I think there are a lot of people talking about it, and I think we'll get there though.
Yeah, and actually that is I would almost argue that is the true innovation that we try to bring to the industry. I still look at myself as an outsider. We have done migrations. We're still doing migrations. I'm the founder of Xillio.
Hmm.
I think we are the best migration company in the world, and we do migrations into the Adobes and the Sitecores and the Drupals for the last 15 years. And actually, I said 15 years many times. It's 17 years.
17, geez, don't, geez, Louise.
Yeah,
I want to come
so
back to that though, because I want to come back to like how LowCub started. I think that's an interesting story I'd like to hear more about. Is like it started by like you looking for like what are some of the challenges with APIs, with connectors, with custom APIs. So let's put a pin in that. I want to come back to it.
yeah, but the story is that the value of translation is, I mean, if you take the definition of translation, I even have my own definition of translation and localization. In my definition, the definition of translation is to expand your market so that more users can find and buy you.
Okay.
The definition of high quality translation is to protect your brand.
Okay.
And the definition of localization is to increase your win chance in the local market. So this is how C-suite looks at it.
I
This is
was going
how
to say
we.
this is a very business centric view of
But,
things,
but,
and I
but
love it. By the way, I love it.
it's a very business centric view. But so what I try to bring is that, look, we do migrations to marketers all the world.
Mhm.
And for most marketer and for most marketing people, the translation is first of all an afterthought. It's not a business enabler, but it's an afterthought. And in my humble opinion, the localization industry is doing their utmost best to present themselves as an afterthought.
Huh.
Because by so much focus
Oh,
on linguistic quality, while all the marketeer cares about is leads and conversion and
right.
brand protection, you actually it almost sounds trouble. It almost sounds trouble. They kind of hear like, oh, this is going to take a long time. And I want to turn the discussion
It's
around and
complicated, right?
show the value of localization.
Yeah, it's complicated. That's the pitch I hear a lot. That's the pitch I've given a lot working at an LSP, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Is
exactly.
translation is so complicated. You couldn't possibly understand how complicated. And like we think that this makes us sound smart. Right? Like, look how smart we are. We manage this very, very, very complicated process. But frankly, it makes us sound like a pain in the ass to work with. And C suite don't like working with pain in the ass
Correct,
vendors. Thank you,
correct.
William, in the comments, by the way. If you're in the comments, let us know. Questions there. But yeah, it's like, and this is why you say that you're from outside the industry. And I love talking to people from the outside the industry because I don't know. Some people come in from outside the industry almost apologetically, like, "Oh, I don't understand. I'm trying to learn," And that I don't think that's the way to do it. I think the way to do it is like I'm going to take all the stuff that I know, thinking about this from a new way based upon all my experience outside the industry, and see what can be applied to localization. And I'm very grateful for folks like senior level folks that come in from outside the industry and say, let's change things because this can certainly be done better.
Exactly, exactly. That's kind of what are driving us here.
Yeah. Well, did you want to get into the demo here before we get too much into it? Because I could just bullshit about quality for a full hour, but I kind of want to show this product.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
So let's do this. Let's see if we got this switch working well here.
Let's hope that this works. That's always scary.
Awesome.
Can you
You
see my
are
screen?
live. We can see your screen. Let me
Perfect,
clean,
perfect.
clean it up a little bit here. If you guys are watching at home, you'll see it moving around a little bit, but that's okay. So talk to us about this, Rickert.
Yeah, so basically we have a crawler. We can crawl websites. It's incredibly easy to start. If you just enter your URL on the website, the crawl starts. So as you see, it's there's a lot of requests. This is all public information. So let me pick an example here. So for instance, we have done a crawl on redhat.com. And so what we have identified here is here you see that we've done a crawl on the 21st of June. It's a snapshot of the 21st of June. If we would do a second crawl, let's say next week, we see the change in status the week
And
after.
when you say you're doing a crawl, right? You're doing a crawl of what? Let's be clear.
We do a crawl of their website. So the way Google crawls your website to index it, we do the same crawl like a Google does. So we basically collect all the information on your website and run our analysis on the top of that.
Okay, excellent. I just want to make sure for folks following along that.
Yeah, so we basically make almost like a copy of your website, and we collect all the publicly available content. Then what I show here is the localization effectiveness. So we have identified 7 characteristics that determine the localization effectiveness in terms of UX and in terms of SEO.
The 7 deadly sins.
And we have divided them here, and we give tools and we give websites a rating based on our algorithm. And that then determines in what area you can make the biggest kind of impact to improve your localization effectiveness score, and thus your SEO and the user experience. And what we see here at Red Hat is that we have language consistency, language quantity, and localization experience. These 3 elements are actually the content that is entered into the system.
So it's the source.
It's the source content into the system. So This is language consistency. Basically, it means if you have the same language on the same page. Now, they score very, very, very low on it. They actually score 0 points. And you will see soon that there's a lot of mixed languages on pages. Then they have language quantity, where we basically look at the quantity of the language. Because what we know is that SEO rates local content very, very highly. And Google has changed the algorithm there, and now localized content is even more important. Then so it's just the quantity of the content compared to the source language. Then it's also called language depth, actually, in the localization industry. Then we have the localization experience. This is in most cases the lowest hanging fruit, and that is that if you have tagged the language correctly. So what we see a lot is that a page is translated into German, but then people forget to actually update Google that you have translated the page into German. So that is really a pity. And then we have the localization reference, the content deduplication, and the search engine friendliness. Now, Red Hat is a big company. They use a proper CMS. So what we see is that if you know what you're doing from a technical point of view, that these 3 points are typically pretty good. But we see still quite a lot of sites where there's no canonical URL, for instance. So then if you have one page and the page is distributed over 7 languages, then Google sees 7 times the same page, and they kind of don't know the value to put on that page, so they divide the value of the page in 7. And you avoid that by having a canonical URL, for instance. Search engine friendliness can be crawl the website in the first place, because if we have difficulties to crawl it, Google also has difficulties to crawl it. Now, so this is the score we give to each website, and that basically tells you where you can improve the SEO and where you can improve the user experience. Now, if you go a little bit deeper here, then
Really
you see
quickly though, I wanted to just call attention to that for folks that are listening and or watching out there, is that this really caught my attention when I was hearing you talk about it, because what this tells me is there's a possibility, not all companies, but there's a big possibility there are companies out there spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on language quality, um, but they are missing a few key steps. Like at the end, they're not running some basic checks to make sure that all of that investment and all of that work that they're actually investing into is they're getting their money's worth on it, which was the example you just used, which was the German. You can translate and you can make sure that your German quality is great and everything, but if you're not updating Google and you're not telling Google, hey, this page is in German, then you're not getting the full results on that. So to me, it's kind of like one of those things, like this extra last step, which is maybe not required by our traditional definition, but it's like, hey, what does it hurt? If you're not doing this, then you might be missing some stuff. Is that an accurate assessment, or is that an accurate takeaway that I should
no,
have
it's a
taken away?
very accurate assessment. And also what it is, it's like it's what is very important is that the improvement areas that we identify is hardly ever the mistake of the translator.
Right.
So there's nearly all the time a mistake in the technical setup, because if a language is not declared, it is most of the time it's because a template has been copied one time and then it has been reused.
Right.
And then as the template has been copied, nobody thinks about updating the actual code there. And or if multiple components are combined on a single page, it's a rendering problem. It's not. It's an IT rendering problem. It's not a translation problem.
So, so,
So
so these are
most of
things that like typical translation managers, globalization departments, would it's not even on their radar, right? Like, because this is not
indeed,
something.
indeed,
Okay.
indeed, and that's why I'm saying like this gives you tangible business, let's say examples and business benefits to improve the conversion. So you help because you help the local marketing department to convert in Germany. If you tell them that not all pages have been declared as German,
Right.
and if you help them improve the user experience, then you actually help them solve their business problem instead of that you just translate.
Well, and this is one of those things too that I feel like as an industry, like for the last 5, 10 years, for however long, it's like we've been begging for a seat at the table with the marketing department because
Yeah,
um, localization teams, there's a lot of overlap with the marketing department. They're one of the primary stakeholders and internal clients for localization teams. But I feel like we've made a lot of progress in that department, and there's organizations out there that really cater to, there's a great connection between the marketing and the localization team, but I feel like, all right, just as we're making progress in there, there's new things that are coming up. So like, I think,
this is just a very good trend, and so that's why I was so impressed with the innovation from you from the what three words, and the dragons were quite tough on her, but so what she showed was that the increased conversion if you have a Japanese picture on their application in the App Store was really a lot higher than if you just translate the picture. And so just a localized picture for Japan helped the conversion in the App Store tremendously. And that's true business value. And because she proved that, she has a seat at the table.
right.
And so that was a perfect example of the value of localization put into action. Because the moment you show that you can help with conversion, the moment you can show that you can help with leads, you have a seat at the table.
Yeah, and I do want to get Mayu on and talk to her as well, because I was very interested in what she had to say about this intersection of language quality, basically taking an increased look at customer experience and user experience on that. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how do you see this shift? So, if we're, first of all, do you agree that as we move forward into the future, organizations are taking a more, they're prioritizing user experience and customer experience more and more? And if we can agree on that, then my question would be, how does that affect the work that we do in localization?
I mean, that is what I find. Let me just show you a couple of examples here. So that
Yeah.
is So if I just continue basically here, then what I see here is that that's a page of meta language mismatch. And so if I go to the first page here, then you see an example. This is a German page. You clearly see it's a German page, and it's declared to Google as English.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Low
So that
hanging
is
fruit. Right. Low hanging fruit.
low hanging fruit. But if I go here, to the not translated, then I see a lot of errors. And then if I pick anything, so let's pick here a press release, for instance. If I click on the press release, then this just looks a little bit messy to me,
Right.
because I have here German navigation. Okay, oh fine. Then I see here Pressemitteilung. 10th annual Red Hat Innovation Award. So this is a component which is translated into German. This is German again. This is English. This is English. This is English. This is Kurzform. This is German. This is English. This is German. I mean, the Red Hat PR contact here. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. And then you have it about translation quality. I don't care about translation quality anymore, because I'm just annoyed by the fact that I have German and English all together.
Yeah. So, I mean, from the user experience perspective.
And I have here a lot of examples. So I have here 578 pages of those examples. So that is really a lot. So if I hear people talk about quality, then I think like quality is brand protection, and brand protection is also that you don't include two languages on the same page, because it just comes across as messy there.
Yeah. So, question. Who's out there? So you could have run this on any website, right? You don't need special access because you've just run this.
No. I can. So we can. You can say pick, and I can show a demo of that, because we have done a lot, as you see.
Yeah. Well, multilingual websites for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, no sense to do a pick one. It's probably already in your list.
Actually, because I know that a lot of your listeners are translators, there is some really low-hanging fruit value in the report here as well. That is very interesting for localization managers and for LSPs. And that is that, let's say you get a call from Red Hat, and they ask you, can you translate redhat.com into Greek? Yeah, because it's not translated into Greek yet.
Okay.
Then you know right now that there are 1,645,000 words to translate.
Oh, so it kind of runs the analysis for you then.
Exactly. So we have done the crawl of the words, so you actually know the amount of words to translate, and this is actually the last kind of business value that I want to stress here as well, is that what you see here on the Red Hat, why it's a funny example, is that there are 2,631, 2,657, so there are roughly every locale has the same amount of languages, but most often the localization team thinks that everything is 100% translated because it's too close to each other.
Right.
So clearly it's not, and I think this is because the starting point of the translation process is probably left to the local marketing, and they're not yet in sync with what the corporate marketing has published.
Makes sense. And so, who out there is, as you're running through these, who out there is doing this well? Like, have you run across websites where, like, you're running a scan and you're looking for these errors and you're like, dang, this is actually pretty clean? Or is this something where it's like all websites have this? You know, it's like all refrigerators have dust underneath them.
I mean, we can do a quick crawl.
Let's do it.
This is Pega 86. Very good.
Nice job, Pega.
86. That is well done, Pega. Essex. I mean, I'm doing this live, so I haven't prepared this. 85. Sure. Pega, not bad. Then PayPal. Let's do PayPal. 77. Okay, this is also not bad.
Yeah, the interesting examples are, of course, the ones that are.
It's still, I mean, 77 is still a lot of room for improvement. Still a lot of low-hanging fruit, but it is. I haven't seen a 90 yet. Tableau 83, so that is that's not bad.
So 90 would be a good score.
Yeah, over 90, that's kind of what you have to strive for. But still, Tableau with a 83 still has 3 on the 25 pages where there are 2 languages on the same page.
I'm wondering. This is very similar to, well, maybe not similar, but synergistic with. Are you familiar with John Yunker and the Web Globalization Report Card that he
Yeah,
publishes
yeah,
every year? Yeah, I had
yeah.
him on an earlier live episode. And what is the overlap or synergy between these two things? Because basically, what his report list is like how well companies are doing from a globalization standpoint, but I'm not sure that it's taking into account these sort of things. Perhaps it is. So you'd have to ask John on that. But have you thought about that at
Um,
all?
no, no, no. Indeed, indeed, indeed. So there will be a big press release coming, not with Mr. Yonkers, but with someone else about where we go a little bit, where we go a level deeper than his website analysis report.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, just curious because hey, we're in the over here at Nimdzi, we're in the research game too, so I'm always
We are we
interested in
are we
that.
are we are about to issue a report
Nice.
about a sector where we have done a deep analysis,
You heard
and
it
it
here
will be
first.
announced soon, but not with yeah.
All right, all right. I'll realign my my line of thinking, or my line of questioning, I should say. Then I don't want to give any spoilers here. So for this tool,
I have to bite my tongue as well.
yeah. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a customer here, and let's say I want to go play around with this. I want to get my report. Is that something that I can do myself, or is that something?
Yes.
It is. So how do I
Yeah.
do that?
So you go to lockup.com and you enter your URL, and if your URL, if the domain that you enter matches your email address, we start to crawl automatically.
Interesting. Okay, that's
And
nice.
then
Yeah.
if the crawl is, let's say,
What if
if
I
you
want to do it
want
for my competitor's website though?
no, so that is, so you need to match, the email needs to match your domain.
Okay, so I can't
That's
do it for
what's
my
going.
competitor's website.
No, no,
Oh
correct.
man, even if I call you
If you
and charge
we
you
have
and you charge me money for it.
we actually have a partner program for LSPs
Okay.
where we do allow that option.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Awesome. Anything else on this demo? What else you got to show me?
No, that was about it.
Very, very cool. Awesome. Let's if you don't mind
Yeah,
stopping your screen share and I can get the
yeah,
it took me this long to get everything set up. So hey, there we go.
good,
So
good.
that we can see each other. So, Xillio, a couple other things that I wanted to ask you about. You guys have a big culture around automation, right?
Yeah,
And this is why it's interesting to me to talk to you about quality, because typically automation and quality, I mean, you can talk about them in the same sentence, but people will have feedback if you do, right?
yeah,
It can be controversial. Like, where do you draw that line between automating quality and trying to create scalable quality processes and actually really respecting the language, which is
yeah,
important to a lot of people in our industry?
yeah. Um, I have a completely different view on that. To be honest,
Okay.
I think that I think that in order to create quality automation with translation, you need to integrate at the core of the business application. And so the core of the business application is developing and updating in a continuous way.
Okay.
And within, and everything is microservice based, everything is API based, everything is headless, everything is in the cloud, and so it the whole concept of connecting in a project method into a TMS is, to me, trying to mix projects with continuous methods. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I was gonna
It doesn't work.
talk about that a little bit because I'm interested to hear more on your thoughts about automation integration and particularly custom integrations that you've seen built in our industry. Because from my understanding, this LoChub is somewhat of a response to to that, like you've investigated through your work, you've investigated, you've seen, you've had access to a bunch of different custom built integrations between technologies and tools and processes that have been built over the years, and you've kind of noticed that you found them lacking. Let's just put it that way. Talk to me about that a little bit.
I mean, look, I don't want to talk bad about
No, no, I'm not saying.
I mean, the quality of the connectors is a disaster.
Oh,
Let me just
I don't want to talk bad, but they're a disaster.
well,
Okay,
it's a
let's
complete
go on
disaster.
that.
But let's not get into that because that makes it less. It's all custom coded. It's hard coded. That's why there's a lot of errors, etc.
Okay,
But so that is of course the reason. And but in my view, that is not the biggest problem.
okay,
The biggest problem is that why does a TMS need to build a connector into a business application, getting a content as an afterthought out and trying to put it back in kind of to kind of automate a back office process after it has been published. I think it should have been embedded at the core. Yeah? And I think you should give your business departments the ability to integrate localization in the app.
okay,
And then the developer of the business application would send it to, in our case, Lockup.
okay.
And then Lockup passes it on to whatever project technology that you want to use. Whether
So,
it's MemoQ or MemSource or whatever XLIF file you want, or whatever project you want, or whatever translation method you want, or whatever LSP you want to work with, or so. But if you try to integrate from a TMS, which is handled to automate the translation projects, if you try to talk from that into an application, it is kind of an afterthought by default.
and maybe that's what you meant in the beginning when you said we've been doing a really good job of making sure that we continue to be thought of as an afterthought, right?
Exactly. Because and
But
if you
but
would just
but just to
in my
clarify, just for me and for all of our listeners, what you so LoCub sits before the TMS, before the
before the
Cat
schema.
2,
Yeah,
before any of that. So
yeah. Where
that is an
content comes
important
first.
distinction because I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. And I've,
No,
actually watched the stuff and everything. So how does that even work? What is there to do before the content gets sent to the TMS?
you get the content.
Okay.
You get the content, and then you have your content in one big hub,
Okay.
in one central repository, and from that you pass it on to whatever method you want to choose. If you have one TMS, you pass to one TMS. If you have two TMSs, you pass to two TMSs. If you want to send it directly to your LSP, you send it to your LSP, and they then download it in their TMS of choice. If you want to send it to MT first for certain applications, then you allow it there. So it's basically a separation between content integration and translation automation. And we don't provide the translation, but what we provide is that we basically are collecting the content and converting it into an output that can be imported by a TMS or by an LSP.
Okay. Very.
So this is the
Is it a CMS though? Right? Because like when you're saying that, I get the idea of, well, how is this not a content management system in and of itself, or is it supposed to be a
yeah, I
content
mean
management system?
you could call it a virtual CMS for multilingual data, but
Okay,
it's not a CMS because we don't create content. We are just a virtual hub
okay,
basically.
so it's kind of like a CMS wrapper, then kind of like an added
It's
functionality to.
maybe an easier way to describe it. It's like a middleware platform, but just for content management system for the translation use case.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm looking for, an easy way to subscribe it. Right,
Yeah,
my monkey
exactly.
brain wants to be able to describe this in like one sentence to people, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think we're
yeah,
getting there. I think we're
yeah.
getting there.
So maybe a little bit extra on that because one of the things that fascinates me, and I see that the story is picking up steam right now. But when I started with the connectors in 2018 in the localization industry, we only had pull connectors. So I thought like you have a vacuum cleaner and you pull all the content out. You pull the content out of the systems automatically, and then based on metadata, you determine your automation rules, and it's all easy. Then what I learned very quickly is that what the localization industry want is push connectors. They want plugins within the CMS systems,
Right.
and so that the local marketing department can select what content he wants so that he can send it for translation. And until today, and we actually developed certain connectors for that. So we have the Adobe connector, which is a push connector, and we have the Drupal connector, which is a push connector. And we developed it because of market demand. But I don't see the need for that. I don't see the use case for that, because all what we see in our dashboard is that the completeness between languages is absolutely none, which is of course obvious because you leave it to the local marketing to make 12 clicks to send a press release for translation. If the local marketing team forgets that, it's not translated. Yeah, so hence you see the discrepancies between because the local marketing simply forgot to do it, and they forgot to press the button to automate it. So I don't understand why. So it is considered a standard, but it doesn't make it right. Yeah? I mean, a local marketing manager doesn't want to do 12 clicks to send a press release for translation.
Well, and this is what
I
we
know it's
found.
press release.
Yeah.
Huh?
And this is what we found with language technology. You know, we talked to, I don't so much personally myself anymore. Because we have Yulia Kokova, who just like follows the technology in our industry. She's our chief technology researcher. And what I've seen is the tools, the solutions that get the best reaction from the clients, the enterprise clients that are going to be implementing them are the ones that allow them to work within their own system and aren't creating work for them, right? It's not another tool. No one wants another tool, right? They want something native. They want something that comes to them. They want something that pushes to them, right? They don't want something that's they have to go find the information that they need to get it, right? So like when you talk to me about the 12 clicks, and what I hear is specifically is, or what I hear generally, I should say, is you talking about the concerns of that marketing manager, that in-country marketing team, right? And that to me is an important distinction, even more so than talking about 12 clicks, is just the fact that you're talking about those local marketing managers tells me that you are, first of all, you're cognizant of and you're empathetic to their needs, which I feel a lot of proposed solutions out there, like we're still trying to figure out how to take into account those local teams. And that at the heart of it is this is design thinking. This is customer centric behavior, is taking into account those end users, because the in-country marketing teams, they could be looked at as a proxy for the end user because they're the ones that are closest to it, right? So,
Exactly.
Kudos on, thinking about how this is affecting the entire organization and all of the markets and not just the localization department. Because we sell a lot we sell to localization directors in our industry, and like LSPs and technology providers. That's who shows up at the conferences, and that's who we pitch to, and that's who we've refined our persona decks as marketing organizations to cater to. But there's a whole new world of stakeholders out there that need the value that we bring in our industry. Either they just don't know it yet, or they're just realizing it, or they're out there building it themselves because they had no idea that any of this exists. So this monologue was to preface a question of, who is this for? Like, who are you going out there and saying, look at my shiny new thing? Other than, or are you keeping it in the family? Are you keeping it in the quote unquote localization industry for now? Or are you out there pitching this to other departments?
No. I think the localization manager is the perfect buyer, and but of course the localization manager has to be forward thinking. Yeah?
Sure.
And so it is. So if you take the connector example, 12 clicks. It's a common thinking that it's needed. I think 0 clicks is the solution.
Well, when you're coming from a solution that was 36 clicks, and some solutions architect comes,
it's 12 clicks for the marketing manager. So it's 0 clicks now. It's automated for the localization manager, so it's pushed to them. So for the localization manager, it's automated for them, but the marketing manager still needs to make 12 clicks. I think we should do 0 clicks for the marketing manager, And I think the localization manager should use her local expertise to define the translation method that best fits the business use case.
Yeah.
And so that is where I think the most value is. And so I am actually, and because I see so many let's say forward thinking localization managers at the PIC and all the talks, I think that localization managers are the right parties to introduce this to the organization. And what we are trying to do with Insights is basically kind of almost like, I don't want to sound like, but it's almost educating them in like, okay, I mean, brand language quality, brand protection.
I like that, brand protection.
Nobody cares about a German translation, or whether it is das or der or die. I mean, nobody cares about a mistake like that. If
You've obviously never met a German language reviewer before in person, but
I understand it is very important. But if you
I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
the error doesn't really pop up.
Well, and
you don't even see the error.
Most clients, and I'm not talking about clients like your clients, I'm talking about end clients. I'm talking about users of localized products. You're right, they don't care, right? I mean, they care, but they care about their experience. So they only care about language insofar as it reflects their user experience. Now, I say they talk about language. I don't say they talk about translation because they don't give a shit about translation, right? It doesn't, and they shouldn't. It shouldn't matter to them that this app originated in a language other than what they're consuming it in, right? And we're actually working on some cool projects right now too. Actually trying to understand, like, what is that impact? What is the localization impact on the users? Going further than, the traditional data sets that have been out there for a while now. And it's interesting because the things that the users are concerned about are things that aren't even checked for, much like what you're talking about here, but from a linguistic quality standpoint. But that leads me to my next question, which is about data and essentially, I hate to say it, ROI, right?
Yeah.
But what is how are we tracking this? What data are you using to report to show concretely, objectively, that this is having the desired result? Because if we're going to come in this not from a linguistic, everything needs to be like perfect language quality, but if we are going to approach it from a business standpoint, which we started this conversation doing, then what is the business case?
So there are a couple of things that are possible. The easiest is to just integrate it with Google Analytics and see the results. Let's see the results of the increase in traffic, and measure the results in a conversion. Yeah. So that is almost the easiest. And then what you then can do, but that is a discussion with the client, is most clients have ballparks what are estimated conversion rates within a country. And then you can look at it like, okay, how does the estimated conversion actually relate to the actual conversion for this particular page? And then you can see the difference between. So, for instance, we are using Xillio, we're using HubSpot in Xillio. I can see the difference in landing pages. I know how a landing page has to convert, and if I then see the difference in conversion, right, because I have localized it perfectly, or the example of Mayu, it's like a perfect example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's too bad Mayu's not here because I'm sure she would have something to say about that.
Yeah, indeed. But it's just about already taking. So I would say proving the ROI of translation is like a next step.
Right.
Opening up the discussion about improving the conversion. If I take Xillio.com as an example. We are right now having the website in Dutch and English. And my number one lead country is the US. My number 2 is UK. Number 3 is Canada. Number 4 is Australia. Number 5 is Holland. The amount of leads I get from Germany and France is very small. Sure. Guess what? Because I haven't translated yet.
I was going to say, I wonder why, right?
Exactly. So I'm actually going to run a test myself. And I'm going to translate Xillio.com in German with machine translation.
Interesting. Are you going to just that is a brave choice, my friend.
Just machine translation, because then I have no cost, I have no complexity. I have no complexity. And then if I want to increase the local conversion, then I'm going to include the localization. I'm skipping the step of high quality translation because that's a brand protector. Now, we are experts in migration. So as Xillio company.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm taking two hats here, Xillio and
Sure.
Localization.
Yeah.
I run both. So I'm just using myself as an example how I think. And so I don't care about the brand of Xillio in Germany because I have zero leads, but I'm the best migration company in the world. So if people find
Yeah.
me, they just want me to solve their problem.
Yeah.
If they have to read it in machine translation, I mean, Red Hat is writing to them in English. I mean,
Yeah.
that's even messier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if they don't like the machine translation, they can read the English because your buyer
Exactly.
persona is,
Exactly. But right now, I'm not even found.
yeah.
I'm not even
Interesting.
found.
Okay.
Huh?
Well,
So that is,
so you have to
so that's
come back on and tell us how your analytics have changed for the German
exactly,
market, because
exactly.
I am legit interested to hear that, because that goes a long way to say, okay, low hanging fruit, MT, right? It's not going to cost me a whole lot. What is that going to change? Now, of course, your situation is unique because you kind of have this well earned peacock status of like, what are you gonna do? We're the best, right? Not every company is going to be able to take that MT market approach.
There are a lot of products companies out there that have the best products.
True.
There's a lot of software products out there. There's a lot of innovation out there. There are a lot of software products out there that are made in the Czech Republic, that are made in Poland, that are made in Italy, that are made in Spain, that are the best in their area.
Hmm.
They are just not known. And so it is actually. Um, I would almost say that it is really the 80% of the world that doesn't speak English. There's a lot of good innovation coming from those countries.
Well, and that's what. So one of the things that I put down on my notes here as you were talking was, to me, this presents an opportunity to be getting value, getting innovation, getting creativity from markets other than the source market, which let's just assume English, right?
Yeah,
And what I mean by that is, if you're looking, because we're talking about like how do we objectively measure this, and your
yeah,
answer, one of your answers, you paraphrased, my paraphrase of it is essentially, well, you need to look at the difference between markets. Like like knowing how Germany is performing in isolation, neat, right? But what is really interesting is knowing how Germany is performing compared to France, compared to
right.
UK, compared to Australia, compared to USA, and all of that stuff. But where that naturally leads is, if you notice abnormalities or discrepancies in the data, of course you're going to investigate that, and it takes us to an opportunity where maybe Germany's performing better than all of your other markets, and you want to know why, and you want to know what you can learn from that. So rather than just experimenting and going back to this design thinking methodology, it's all about testing and making a hypothesis, testing it, prototyping, all of that stuff. And traditionally, we test and prototype in our home market, but we don't use the feedback that we're getting from those other markets to actually change our product. And so that opens up a whole new world of possibilities for listening in a way to our global customers. Because people, I think this is one thing that people misunderstand about like design thinking or customer centric methodologies, is that you think you need to be in contact with your actual customers, like talking to them, doing focus groups with the customers and stuff. Not necessarily. There are many different ways to listen to your customer, and that of course is a good one, to actually talk to them. But another way, and the most common way, probably because it's the most cost effective way that we listen to our customers, is through the analytics, right?
Exactly.
And your whole system is built on analytics. Essentially,
Indeed, indeed.
that's what I'm hearing. Like, the goal of this is to appease the Google gods, right? And make sure that Google smiles favorably upon your content and serves it to the right people.
It all starts there.
Yeah,
Let's face it. If you're not found, it kind of makes no sense to write.
it is a very good point. Well, sir, I'm just watching the clock here. We've been doing this for about almost an hour. Time always flies, but we've been doing this for about 50 minutes. Anything else? What did I forget to show? I've got all these links over here. What can we plug? The Process Innovation Challenge website. You can find it at pic.locworld.com, and there's a nice little write-up about this year's the contestants and Rikkert. You've got a press release coming out, you said. When's that coming out, Rikkert? When?
I think in 3-4 weeks or something.
In 3-4 weeks, so keep your guys' eyes open for that. What else? Anything we should plug before we call it a day here?
No, I think it was a great conversation. I think I'm very excited to be here, and let's bring some innovation to the industry, and most of all, let's get some business discussion going.
Yeah,
and let's try to translate the language quality into business KPIs.
I am very much looking forward to observing this conversation that we are having as an industry, and I think we will be having over the next year. And I say observing, I'm going to butt myself into it and be a part of the conversation, I'm sure. But exciting things happening with quality, how we define quality, exciting things happening with where we focus our investment, I think, in this industry. I think we're going to be seeing less budget going towards outdated spreadsheet-based LQA models, and more budget going towards things that are scalable, things that are able to capture the local complexities of language and market, but at a scale, in a scalable way and at a global level. And sir, I thank you for your contribution to the industry.
Thank you, Tucker.
And here's where I give my endorsement that Nimdzi does not support, endorse, or condone anything, blah 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 blah. But like I said before, we're not. This is not an endorsement. This is not sponsored content. What this is I saw a cool product that has the potential to do cool things in this industry, and I wanted to make sure our audience is about it. So once again, thank you very much, Rikkert, for coming on with us today.
Thank you, Tucker. Appreciate it.
And with that, I will bid you guys once again adieu. This is Nimdzi Live, I should say. And if you're not liking and subscribing to this content, then you're not going to be notified when we go live again. These are pop-up events. And if you know of somebody who has some value to add for the Nimdzi audience, maybe that person is you, then we want to hear from you. Reach out to me. You can DM me on LinkedIn. You can email me at tucker@nimdzi.com. And with that, I will bid you adieu, and we will see you next time. Everyone have a great day.